was overwhelmed by the favor. She felt that this man must have forgotten something important, and didn't even know that she had taken his storage ring. Perhaps he'd just been passing by to administer justice. As a result, she stood up straight and walked up to Eva and the head of the Spear family, who were kneeling on the ground, smiled and said, "The two family heads really shouldn't have acted so impulsively. Wouldn't you agree?" When Eva and the Spear family had heard her voice, they became outraged. But because Richard was there, they could only admit their mistake. Yes, we were impulsive," they cried. "Please give us the antidote." Myra touched her spatial ring, and two small medicinal bottles, one black and one red, appeared in her hands, which she handed over to the two old men. Inside each bottle there's one antidote. The two of them were surprised by Myra's generosity and quickly said, "Thank you, miss." Myra smiled warmly. "You're welcome. One pellet is worth 1,000 gold coins." With that, she squatted down and calmly looked at them. Black Leopard almost laughed out loud. He knew Myra wasn't that easy to deal with. Eve and the Spear family heads' faces were both pale and dark. 1,000 gold coins represented months of income. But since things had come to this point, what could they do about it? They could only obediently pay up. Myra was soon holding a heavy money bag in one hand, laughing heartily. As expected of the two of you noble families, both have a lot of money. Even I've never seen so much. After receiving the money, she didn't forget to poke fun of them. Immediately, she saw that the 3 injured men lying side by side had ugly looks on their faces, and Meryl even spat out a mouthful of venomous black blood. Did Meryl vomit blood just like that? Thought Myra. Apparently her mental endurance is a bit lacking. Myra stood up shakily, then took out the marriage contract that she had created 8 years ago. Looking at that parchment, which didn't have a single fold, she smiled cynically, held the paper in the middle with her fingers, and gently pulled. Her hands didn't stop moving, and the marriage contract in her hands quickly turned into a pile of scraps. With a wave of her graceful hands, white bits of paper fluttered into the air over the heads of the Rogers family members. Paper flew everywhere as she opened her mouth. "From today onward, I will break off all ties with your Rogers family. If you don't grow eyes and you become my opponent in the future, don't blame me for not being so gentle." With that, she turned around and left. Under the sunlight, her back was straight. Her arrogance was unparalleled, making people feel she was untouchable. Richard looked at her, his deep eyes revealing a faint sense of praise. Just as Myra took 2 steps forward, she felt a sharp pain in her shoulder, and a hand forcibly grabbed her, sending her flying high into the sky. The crowd only saw a shadow flash past, and the 3 people in front disappeared. Battle King? Can you tell me where you want to take me first?" Richard didn't react. He only continued to hold her and fly. "I mean, we barely know each other. Don't you think it's better to take things slow?" Richard's aura was cold, and he didn't intend to stop. "Oh my God, I'm so afraid of heights, I'm going to vomit." Myra covered her mouth in wretched. Indeed, in the next moment, Richard began to descend. Myra let out a light snort after getting the upper hand. Such a gullible man, seeing how uptight you are. You must be a germaphobe. The place where they landed wasn't far from the forest they had first met. It was a land of poetry and grass that bordered a mountain and a river. However, Myra wasn't in the mood to admire her surroundings. She was filled with apprehension. Once upon a time, she felt that the death god was ever drawing nearer. Richard observed her, and when he saw that she wasn't showing any real signs of nausea, he turned to look at the clear lake water in front of him. Looking at the man, Myra could tell that if she didn't speak, he wouldn't speak either. "Thank you, Battle King, for seeing me out," she said. If she had to die, she didn't want it to be like this. Being by his side was just too terrifying. "Did I let you go?" said Richard, turning his head coldly, his gaze sharp. Black Panther fell silent for a moment, but eventually spoke. "Master, can you not say that you're reluctant to part with it? A girl like this, it might scare her away, okay?" Myra was infuriated, but for the sake of his little life, she forced a smile and said, "If you're not leaving, then what exactly do you want to do? Let's chat a bit." Richard extended his hands out to her. "Ring." Myra realized that things weren't going as well as expected. This guy wasn't easy to deal with. However, she knew that if she handed it over, she would die. "What ring?" Myra doubtfully pointed to her ring and said, "This is what my mother left for me." "Bring me my ring," said Richard without the least bit of hesitation. "How am I supposed to know where your ring is?" said Myra, intent to keep up this little charade until the very end. Richard saw that she was being dishonest and said in a low voice, "That is my contract ring. I can feel that it's on your body." Myra's face instantly turned ashen, but she quickly smiled. "That's right. Examine my memory. I remember that a thief stole it from you that day, and then I saw someone helping you take it back." Richard looked at her coldly. Myra took out the storage ring, placed it in his hand, and then laughed. "It's nothing, and you don't even have to thank me." Just as she finished speaking, she felt a pain in her wrist. As Richard had grabbed her hand, Myra was furious. She wanted to make it up to him, but there was no end to that. Stretching her hand, she also did the same with the knife. Who could she, Myra, be afraid of? "I know you're powerful, but what ability do you have to kill a young girl like me? If you have the guts, wait for me for 3 years." She roared, and after saying those fierce words, she glared at Richard but realized that Richard wasn't looking at her at all. Just then, she felt her fingers turn cold. And then she looked down to find that Richard had put the black dragon mark ring onto her middle finger. She felt that her heart might hammer right through her chest. She was utterly stupefied. What was this person doing? Even though she had just transmigrated, she knew this ring was highly valued. The real deal. For you. These 2 words came out of Richard's mouth, and upon hearing them, Myra's blood ran cold. Myra asked desperately, "Can you not?" She didn't like the feeling of not knowing whether she was being harmed or helped. Meanwhile, Richard's face seemed to have turned into ice, and he shook off her hand. "If you ever try to take my life, I'll snatch yours away in a flash," he said. "Remember that, girl." "Yes," said Myra, nodding her head. This man wasn't one to offend. Richard's expression improved, though. "I've already taken away the things inside." Myra felt that it wouldn't be wrong no matter how hard she earned treasure. As for the secrets, she'd just have to explore them in the future. She bit her finger and dripped a drop of blood on the dragon tattoo. The blood quickly spread and covered the marking, instantly making the picture more vivid. Then, with a flash of black light, her blood disappeared. The ring on her finger suddenly tightened, and a warm sensation pressed against her skin as if it was custom-made. Seeing this scene, the corner of Richard's mouth raised slightly.